Part 5. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 41. A cloudy sky with a huge thunderball suspended in it. And in front of this thunderball, a figure stood proudly. Turning around slowly, I saw the thunderball in front of me raise his right hand, and the huge thunderball gradually dissipated, and finally disappeared into the palm of his hand. After doing all this, Mei Yi landed on the deck from the sky. "Captain, do you like the look of Mei Yi?" Mei turned around as she stood in front of Arthur, her eyes shining expectantly. Becoming the lawgiver of thunder, or because of her shoes, Mei looks much taller, only a little lower than Arthur. "Well, it's good, it's even more handsome than before." Looking at Mei Yi in front of him, Arthur nodded with satisfaction. So, if she could, Mei would like to. With such a gesture, Mei Yi's expression suddenly twisted a little, and a pair of big eyes seemed to be able to hook people's souls. "Yes, yes." Arthur nodded repeatedly. "Ahem." With a light cough, Rita walked over with a smile on her face. "Mei, what is your strength now?" This Mei Yi is not very clear, and it feels very strong. Mei Yi thought about it, and he couldn't say the specific strength. "That's not easy, don't we just have a sparring target behind us?" A smile tugged at Arthur's lips. "The Navy has been following behind, and it's time for them to play their part." "Okay, Captain." Mei Yi nodded, and her body jumped to her feet. Brush. Within several huge thunderbolts, a huge figure emerged. Black-red scales, sharp claws, sharp teeth, and a pair of wings can set off a storm with a gentle wave. Judgment level Honkai Beast Kurigara. The Honkai Beast, the companion of the Lawgiver of Thunder, is not set in the same way as Bebe Long. Kurigara's wings flickered slightly, and the whole person rushed out in an instant like a sharp arrow. It's so convenient that you can get there very quickly wherever you go. Looking at the remaining thunder in the air, Arthur also had some thoughts in his heart. But this needs to be implemented slowly. On the warship at that moment, Zifa stood there dumbfounded. "Did you just see that?" All of these thunderbolts were absorbed by one person. Zifa was still thinking back to the previous image in his mind, and the more he thought about it, the more frightened he felt. Could it be that person is a natural devil fruit ability, and he is also the thunder with the most violent attack power in the natural system? If it is really as he thinks, then the true strength of the Arthur pirates is probably much more terrifying than he imagined. It's no longer a question of seeing or not seeing. Crane's face changed suddenly. "She's already here." Fierce winds swept through the sky, causing the warships below to shake violently. Mei Yi stood on Kurigara's back, staring down without speaking, and slowly drew the long sword in her left hand. As the sword was drawn, arcs of lightning flickered around. Each flicker made the hearts of the navy below tremble. "I'm afraid it will fall directly. With their flesh and blood, they can't withstand the damage of thunder and lightning." Defense. Seeing Mei Yi slowly draw out his long sword, Zifa shouted, and the armed color was directly attached. The next second. Boom. Billaba crackle. Thunder and lightning fell from the sky, dense as rain, enveloping all the warships in front of them. After doing all this, Mei Yi didn't stop and turned to leave. Below, on the deck of the warship, everyone was scorched by electricity, and black smoke was emitting from their bodies. Zifa opened his mouth, and a puff of black smoke came out. "It's so wicked, it's useless to be armed," Zifa said as he tidied up his whole body. "By the way, we should be glad that the other side showed mercy, otherwise we people would not have been just embarrassed." Hearing the sound of the crane, Zifa turned around. "Poof, ha ha ha, your hair." On the other side of Zifa, the crane's hair exploded like a hedgehog. Boring. Tsuru didn't seem to care about his image, and with a blank glance at Zifa, who was forcibly holding back his smile, he turned around and walked into the cabin. It seems that she is going to clean up too. On the deck of the White Dragon, when Mei Yi fell, the Kuligara under him automatically dissipated into lightning. Both the attack power and the speed are stronger than before, and all the thunder and lightning are under control. Mei summed up her feelings. Well, yes, let's go. The three of them returned to the cabin one after another. Soon night fell. Rita, how are you feeling? On Arthur's fingers, faint arcs of electricity flashed. Everything was as Arthur had predicted. Mei was promoted to SSS class, and the ability given to him was to manipulate thunder and lightning. In other words, Arthur now has the ability to manipulate ice and thunder, as well as a swordsmanship. It's crispy, it's a great feeling. Rita said and looked at Arthur, a smile curling into her lips. Captain, aren't you going to look for Mei Yi? Why did you come to me? Mei Yi said to surprise me. Wait a minute, so I'm here to test the power of thunder and lightning with you. Okay, Captain, I used Rita as a test subject. Rita's mouth pursed slightly, and she looked unhappy. Hee, I see you're still enjoying this lab. Arthur said with a slight strain on his fingers, causing Rita to let out a cry of pain. Captain, you're a little lighter, it's painful. Rita gave Arthur a sneering look. Go find your Mei Yi, lest you say that Rita is ignorant. Rita said and nudged Arthur. Okay, then I'll go first. Arthur said as the lightning between his fingers swelled violently, directly through Rita's body. The hateful captain only knows how to bully others by changing the law. Because of the effect of the electric arc, Rita's body had to convulsions from time to time. It's time to clean up again. Looking at the mess in front of her, Rita sighed softly. On the other side, arcs of electricity swam through the room as if they were alive. Surrounded by thunder and lightning, a figure floated out. The whole body is covered with thunder and lightning to form a long skirt, and the long skirt is also dotted with several purple petals. Captain, is Mei pretty? The figure was like a feather, and he came to Arthur with a slight movement. Beautiful. Arthur put his hands on Mei Yi's shoulders. However, it was found that where the hands passed, the thunder and lightning dissipated. Mei Yi's eyes are gentle, and everything is in plain sight. Kiana's words didn't want to divide her into two people, because Kiana's power comes from the lawyer, and if she separates, it will be difficult to set up her strength. But the consciousness of the lawyer can exist, the body of obedience, the consciousness of resistance. Think about it, isn't it great? Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 42. Rocks Pirates. On the deck, many people gathered in twos and threes, each exuding a tyrannical aura all over their bodies. It's clear that he's just coming out of the fighting. Arthur Pirates, this Pirates hasn't done much lately, but it's quite a big move. Edward held a newspaper in his hand. There is a picture on it, and it is a figure standing in the midst of thunder and lightning. Nature, devil fruit power, I really want to fight her. No one will refuse to fight against the strong, especially those who have been chasing the strong. On the side, Shiki was also looking at the same content, his eyes flashing with shrewdness, not knowing what he was thinking. The Arthur Pirates, just 3 people, but each of them has such a powerful. Now the Navy headquarters has been staring at the Rocks Pirates, a small battle a day, a big battle every 5 days, that is a common thing, and Shiki is already a little bored. Getting rich is his goal. Now, however, every day is spent in battle. Shiki has already made the Arthur Pirates his backway, and he has absolute self-confidence as well. With his strength, joining any pirate group is a top-notch existence, and I believe that no one will refuse. While others, such as Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, are also interested in the content of the newspaper. After all, they've dealt with the Arthur Pirates before. It's a shame that we didn't join our Rocks Pirates in the first place. Charlotte Lingling said, and looked at Locks, who had been silent, and a smile curled up at the corner of her mouth, and continued. With the strength of the Arthur pirates, if we join forces with our Rocks pirates, it is not impossible to fight even the headquarters of the Navy. Locks looked ahead, a glint flashing in his deep eyes. Raising his right hand, he grabbed a crumpled newspaper in his palm. Gently opened, it tells the story of the recent actions of the Arthur pirates. It's true that the man I was interested in at the beginning has reached such a point. The deployment of the Navy, they just need to look at it and it will understand. Following around, it is obvious that he is afraid of the strength of the Arthur pirates. Transfer, go, and meet our old friend. The Navy was watching every move of the Rocks pirates, so as soon as the course changed, the news was immediately sent to Sengoku and Carp. The Rocks pirates have changed their course. Sengoku looked at the report in front of him, and his eyes showed a light of thought. He didn't think that the Rocks pirates were changing direction for no reason, and there must have been something he hadn't thought of happening. Bring the charts. Hearing this, a Navy immediately handed over a chart. The charts are very detailed, and with the power of the Navy, every country and island on the sea, as long as there is a place where people have set foot, are clearly marked. The direction of the Rocks pirates continues to stretch forward, and there are no famous countries or rich islands ahead. It's really strange, there are about 3 days to reach Permerkin. How can he change direction at the last moment? Permakim, the largest exporter of ore on the sea, can be said to be rich in oil for everyone above. Sengoku originally thought that Lox's target was there, so they made arrangements in advance. But unexpectedly, when they were about to arrive, they suddenly changed the navigation track. What is it about this that attracts Lox? Sengoku's fingers slowly slid forward along the course, and when he reached a certain position, Carp next to him suddenly spoke. This location is where we met the Arthur pirates before. Speaking of which, Carp couldn't help but think back to the last time he faced the Overlord. It still makes him feel palpitations. With such a powerful Overlord color, I am afraid that there is no second one in the entire sea. You mean the Arthur pirates? Sengoku was slightly stunned, his pupils slowly expanded, and a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind, and he seemed to have thought of something. That's right, it's the Arthur pirates. Carp nodded and continued. Zifa was the Arthur pirates who met in this place, and he contacted Zifa some time ago, and he has probably arrived at this location. Carp pointed to the 2 locations he had mentioned on the chart, and they were not far from the direction in which the Rocks pirates were heading. I see, the Rocks pirates want to find the Arthur pirates. As soon as these words were spoken, Sengoku's face changed. Although he had never seen the Arthur pirates, listening to Carp's words, he was undoubtedly a very powerful existence, and although the number was small, he could suppress one side. If the Rocks pirates and the Arthur pirates converge, then the already bad situation of their navy will be even worse. Even if they converge, it shouldn't matter, the Arthur pirates shouldn't be united with the Rocks pirates. It is said that the Rocks pirates have been invited before, but they have been rejected by the Arthur pirates. The Rocks pirates are their navy's biggest rivals, and they have a very clear understanding of the composition of the ship's personnel and the circumstances of their birth. Only then did I know that at the beginning of the establishment of the Rocks pirates, the Arthur pirates had been invited. Don't forget that they're all pirates. Sengoku paced back and forth anxiously, thinking of various ways to deal with it in his mind, trying to stop it from happening. But no matter what he thinks, in the face of absolute power, no stratagem is useless. If Lox and Arthur join forces, it will be the real end of the sea. I decided. Sengoku suddenly stopped, his face serious. As far as is known, there are only 3 members of the Arthur pirates, and they must be one step ahead of the Lox pirates to find the Arthur pirates and destroy them. This is the method that Sengoku came up with. If you snipe at the Rocks pirates, you might be able to delay their progress, but it's just a delay. Eventually, they will still join the Arthur pirates. So the only way to do this is to target the Arthur pirates. I'll go with you. Having seen the might of the Arthur pirates, Carp was not at ease about letting Sengoku go alone. No, Carp, you continue to follow the Rocks pirates, and in any case, we'll call you. Without further ado, I'm going to leave at once. After saying that, Sengoku did not stop, and immediately ordered to go down and prepare a warship for him. In order to be in a hurry, Sengoku traveled lightly, and only the driver accompanied him. Carp stood on the deck and watched the rapidly departing warship, muttering to himself. Arthur's pirates, I didn't expect you, who had been staying out of the matter, to become the center of this battle. Carp's gaze was full of solemnity. He would rather continue to deal with the Rocks pirates than face the Arthur pirates again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 43. Captain. Rita Shiran walked over, turned around, and sat on Arthur's lap. What's wrong, Rita? Looking at the face that was close at hand, Arthur couldn't help but lift her smooth chin. Nothing, just a little bit of missing the captain. Rita said and hugged Arthur's neck, a faint smile on her face. We seem to see each other every day. Arthur raised an eyebrow. That's right, it's because we see each other every day that I miss it even more. Rita said with a pinch of her head, her eyes looking at Mei, who was walking over. If the captain doesn't believe me, you can ask Mei, she must have the same feeling as Rita. Seeing Rita and Arthur's gaze on him at the same time, there was not a blush on Mei's fair cheeks. It's true that I've always wanted to be by the captain's side, and I feel at ease. Mei said with her hands on her chest, her eyes slowly closing as if she was reminiscing about a certain feeling. In that case, why don't you come here quickly? Arthur pulled out his other hand and beckoned to Mei. The three of them snuggled up on the couch, and at this moment they didn't speak, listening carefully to each other's heartbeats. Arthur's side was calm and peaceful, and on the warship behind, Zifa received a phone call that made him completely stunned. Prepare to attack the Arthur pirates. Putting down the phone bug in his hand, Zifa still had disbelief in his tone. He had seen the combat power of the Arthur pirates with his own eyes, and he might not be able to take them down if he brought 180 warships together. But just now, Sengoku told him that he would arrive immediately, and when the time came, he would join forces with him to destroy the Arthur pirates. Good guys, that's a big breath. Zifa couldn't help but complain. Now that the order has been given from above, let's prepare. The crane's expression did not change much, and it seemed that he had expected it a long time ago. After saying that, he turned around and left, as if he really went to get ready. Hey, are you mistaken? We're fighting the Arthur pirates. It's the Arthur pirates, have you forgotten what happened a few days ago? Zifa took 2 or 3 steps in front of the crane. 10,000 thunders are out, and how many navies go up is just to send them to death, not to mention, only 1 warring states came to support, and the large army will not be able to arrive until later. So what? Crane's rhetorical question made Zifa a little speechless. Is it just because you can't beat it that you won't fight? We are the navy, and obeying orders is what we should do. After saying that, Tsuru left from the side, leaving Zifa standing in place. First of all, I'm not afraid. As if sensing that Tsuru had misunderstood him, Zifa shouted at her, departing back. Of course I know this, after all, you're the black-fisted Zifa. The crane waved his hand as he walked forward. It's finally come to this day. Zifa took a deep breath and walked to the deck, looking at the endless sea in front of him, his eyes heavy. This crusade against the Arthur pirates can be said to be 9 deaths. But as the Crane said, they are the Navy. No matter how great the difficulties are, we can only rise to them. Sci-fi did not deliberately hide this matter, and all the navies on the warship already knew about it. Know what they're going to face next? As the days passed, the atmosphere on the ship gradually became solemn. Because everyone knows that the day is getting closer and closer to the real battle with the Arthur pirates. Sci-fi was not in the mood to wander around, and sat in the cabin in a dull manner. Calculate the time, and the warring states will come in the last 2 days. Another day passed, and the warring states that had been waiting for it finally arrived. Sci-fi, are you ready? Sengoku's tone was a little hurried, as if he couldn't wait. Why are you in such a hurry? Aren't you chasing the Rocks pirates? Why do you want to provoke the Arthur pirates now? Has this matter been reported to the marshal? 3 questions were asked directly in a row, and in the phone bug before, Sengoku did not explain it to him in detail. It's the Rocks pirates, he's on his way here, and wants to join the Arthur pirates. Sengoku took a deep breath and said slowly. You should know how powerful they can be when the 2 of them meet. And I've already reported this matter to Marshal Empty on the way here. Hearing Sengoku's words, Sci-fi understood. No wonder they have to take the initiative to provoke the Arthur pirates, this is to the point where they have to move. Now that they are scattered, they are relatively easy to deal with, and if they cooperate, the whole sea will no longer be able to resist them. You're saying the Rocks pirates are heading this way? Sci-fi suddenly thought of something and hurriedly asked. Yes, that's right, but I'm coming quickly, and the Rocks pirates should not arrive in a few days, so we're going to take advantage of that time too. The latter words of Sengoku were not spoken, but the meaning was already very obvious. They only have a few days to spare. Let's do it now, it's a matter of success or failure. Before arriving here, I have done my best to notify the Navy branch to send troops to support, and it will be there in about a while. Everyone was on deck, and the speed of the warship was slowly increasing, heading forward. In the rear, dozens of warships are also rapidly approaching. This was the reinforcement sent from a nearby naval branch. On the deck of the White Dragon, Arthur looked ahead, the shadow of a small island looming. I've been floating on the sea for a few days and I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, so let's go and see the little island. Arthur said and stretched lazily. It is unclear that he will be involved in such a huge maelstrom of naval and locks battles as he has been staying out of the situation. It's true, the trees want to be quiet and the wind doesn't stop. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 44. Captain, this island doesn't seem to have anyone else. Mei also found no trace of human existence. Rita and Mei walked towards Arthur from both sides, with some doubt in their eyes. It's a good place to live, with the right temperature, lush vegetation, and plenty of water, but it's strange that there isn't a single person. Mei came to Arthur and pouted slightly, looking very cute. Indeed, maybe no one else discovered the island. Rita also agrees with Mei's words. Isn't there anybody else? Arthur didn't particularly care about that. I just wanted to relax on this island. We'll spend the night here tonight. Arthur glanced around, this place is quite suitable for camping. Do you want to spend the night here? If you're going camping, delicious food is also indispensable, so leave it to Rita, Captain. Arthur bought a chaise longue from the store and lay comfortably on it to watch the busy figures of the 2. Soon, the bonfire rises and Rita hunts a sea king from the sea, while on the other side, a simple tent has been set up. Captain, do you want to try it? A large piece of grilled fish was handed to Arthur. The fragrance surrounding it is already full of appetite before you eat it. Rita, you can make such delicious ingredients no matter what the ingredients, and you are really happy to be your captain. It's also our happiness to have you, Captain. A faint smile appeared on Rita's face. "Captain, it seems to be a warship in the distance." As soon as Mei stood up after packing up her tent, she saw the silhouettes of warships emerging on the horizon in the distance. Warship? Arthur frowned, staring at it, even more confused. One warship after another lined up side by side, and there were more than a dozen of them he saw, and there might be more to come. In this formation, some people are not good. "Captain, these warships seem to be coming at us." Rita's eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed. Bang bang bang. Shells were sent out from the warship, and the pitch-black shells spread all over the sky. Descending from the sky, it carried out an all-round attack on the island. "It seems to be coming for us." Arthur stood up from his chair, the look on his face gradually retracting. Didn't say a word, and fired directly, all of which made it clear that they wanted to fight him to the death. In that case, then he doesn't have to be polite. "Captain, let Rita." "Nope." Arthur grabbed Rita and Mei, who wanted to rush up, looked up and saw the falling cannonball, and waved his right hand. Brush brush brush. A ray of light flashed in front of him, and in the midst of these lights, a Titan mecha emerged. Standing side by side, there are 30 bodies. It's this kind of thing again, there are so many. On a warship at the forefront, Zifa looked at the Titan mechas standing on the horizon, and the expression on his face was very ugly. 2 or 3 ships had already exhausted him before, but now it was 10 times more. Whoosh! Cannonballs erupted from the Titans, each of which was enough to fire nearly 10 cannonballs. 30 Titan mechs formed a barrage and rushed upward. Boom, boom. The shells met in mid-air and made a huge explosion. Whew, luckily, it stopped. Zifa breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. In the face of Arthur's suppression of firepower, he now has a shadow in his heart. Picking up the binoculars and looking at the island, his eyes almost popped out. How, there will be, so much more. Originally, there were only 30 Titan mechs on the edge of the island, but now this number has multiplied several times. A huge phalanx was formed, spread over the edge of the island. Hope you'll enjoy this appetizer. Launch. This time, Arthur got all the Titan mechs he had in stock. For the navy that dares to attack him, naturally it will not spare its hands. As for whether it was a misunderstanding or something, let's talk about it first. With a wave of his right hand, hundreds of shells were fired in a volley. That's why I told you a long time ago that with our firepower we can't match it. Seeing the flickering fire, the cannonballs were coming at them like meteors. It is estimated that only one round of attacks will be enough to bomb dozens of their warships to the ground. Zifa could only sigh helplessly when he looked at the warring states next to him. All warships attacked again. Since he has to face the Arthur pirates, he naturally has a basic understanding of his situation. But what Sengoku didn't expect was that even if he overestimated the Arthur pirates, it seems that now he still underestimated it after all. More than 50 warships, each armed with 4 cannons. 20 shells shot into the sky. However, such a block is not enough. On the deck of the warship, several figures stepped forward, drew their respective weapons, and looked up at the falling cannonballs to attack. In this sortie, each warship was equipped with a rear admiral, as well as several colonels. It is more than enough in the face of these ordinary shells. Oh! These navies seem to be quite well prepared. Arthur raised his eyebrows, and with a wave of his hand, the surrounding Titan mechs disappeared. In the next battle, these Titans can't help much, so let's save it for the future to deal with those juniors. Seeing Arthur put away the Titan mecha, both Zifa and the navy on the ship breathed a sigh of relief. Don't look at it, they can withstand the first wave of attacks, but they can't resist such attacks after 2 or 3 more attacks. There are too many of them, and even if you have domineering, you will inevitably be damaged. At the same time, the warships did not attack with shells anymore. Because it's just a waste, and it can't cause effective damage. Sengoku, I didn't expect him to come too. Closer, Arthur could already see the figure standing on the ship. Arthur's pirates, please destroy you here today. Sengoku jumped down from the warship, and was in mid-air, and golden light emanated from his body. At the same time, the body is gradually getting bigger. Animal department, human fruit, phantom beast species, big Buddha form. The warring states of Buddha is well deserved. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 45. Dazzling golden light fills the air. In this golden light, Sengoku's body is like a Buddha. Look at the move. Sengoku, who fell from the sky, stretched out his right hand and slapped it at Arthur. The warring states of the Buddha. A smile tugged at the corner of Arthur's mouth, and with a wave of his right hand, a long sword appeared in his hand. Brush. An icy aura permeated the long sword, and where the blade passed, the ice seemed to freeze the space. Bang. The attacks collided, and a huge wave of sound spread in all directions. The calm sea suddenly set off huge waves, and the warships on it collided with each other. The aftermath alone dealt more damage than the previous direct attack. Everyone disembarked at once. One by one, the navy jumped from the warship, and in the blink of an eye, the entire beach was occupied. It's time to clean up again. Seeing the dense navy around her, Rita showed a faint smile. With a wave of his right hand, a huge scythe emerged, and at the same time, the armor of the whole body appeared. Hunter outfit shadow iron. Brush brush brush. Several cold rays flashed, and they instantly cleared a clearing around themselves. Sting. A thunderbolt fell from the sky and shrouded Mei Yi's body. In the midst of this thunder, a figure emerged. Lawgiver of Thunder. The long sword in his right hand swung lightly, thunder and lightning filled the air, and his gaze swept coldly around him. For the enemy who came to trouble the captain, Mei Yi didn't know how to show mercy to his subordinates. The aura of slaughter gathered throughout the island, and the sky became dark, and dark clouds gradually gathered, and everyone's mood became heavy. Just let me be your opponent. Zifa came to Rita, armed with his arms attached, looking at Rita with solemnity in his eyes. This is a strong opponent, and just standing in front of Rita gives Zifa a clear understanding. Those cold eyes carried a disregard for life, and it was the first time he had encountered such an enemy, which made Zifa feel unprecedented pressure. It's really unforgivable that you disturbed Rita and Captain's pleasant camping time. Rita's eyes narrowed slightly, and with a wave of her right hand, she took the lead in attacking. On the other side, Tsuru finds Mei Yi. Looking at the figure in front of him, the scene of that day is still vivid. The proud posture bathed in thunder and lightning will probably not be forgotten in this life. The momentum of destruction gradually pressed against her, and Tsuru knew that he was no match for the person in front of him, but as a navy, he could not back down even in the face of an enemy several times stronger than him. Under Mei's cold gaze, Tsuru gradually drew the long sword at his waist. Het. Seeing this scene, the corners of Yi's mouth hooked a trace of arc. Brush. Purple thunder flashed, and in the next second, he was already in front of the crane. The long sword in his hand carried the thunder and lightning that destroyed everything, and he slashed straight down without hesitation. Boom. There was a dull sound in the sky, as if a storm was coming. Sengoku, is this all your strength? Feeling the pressure from the sword, Arthur had a faint smile on his face. It's really strong. For his own blow to be caught by Arthur, it was already expected by Sengoku. Frozen in mid-air, the other hand shot straight down. Boom. With Arthur as the center, the ground cracked, and a large pit several meters deep was forced out. The look in Sengoku's eyes changed slightly. He had already used most of his strength, but it seemed to be easy to look at Arthur. It seems that this is your current level of the Sengoku of Buddha. Arthur looked up slowly, a flash of thunder flashing in his eyes. Brush. A small arc of electricity flashed, and Arthur had disappeared in front of Sengoku. Where did the people go? The speed at which he couldn't even capture it shocked Sengoku's heart. Seeing and hearing the domineering color shrouded the surroundings, carefully searching for Arthur's figure. No, 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 where the hell is it? Warring states in all directions searched carefully, but found no trace. It can't disappear for no reason, it must be hidden in a place that I didn't find. On top of you, Sengoku. A voice descended from the sky, carrying a cold glow at the same time. In the midst of this cold light, the purple thunder exudes an aura of destruction. Armed color. The armed color domineering is attached to the hands, and in the face of this attack, the warring states plan to block hard. This can also be regarded as a disadvantage of being in the form of a big Buddha. The body gets bigger, the strength increases, but the speed is a little slower. Bang. The armed color of the warring states is still somewhat useful, and with the blessing of the fruit's ability, it did not break through the defense at the first time. At the place of collision, the golden light and the thunder and lightning entangled with each other, spreading outward, enveloping the two of them. Sengoku's face gradually turned hideous. Waves of great power came at him. The main thing is that this force is mixed with violent thunder and lightning and freezing ice. These two kinds of being taken out separately are all first-class existences, and they are combined at this moment. Sengoku felt that his armed color was going to be unbearable. Brush. Finally, after holding on for a few seconds, under the impact of waves of power, the long sword broke through the defenses of the warring states. Straight down. Poof. Arthur fell to the ground, and around him, bright red blood fell down. Behind him, the huge Buddha warring states took a few steps back, his right hand covering the wound that had slashed diagonally down from his left shoulder, almost cutting his body in half, and panting heavily. It's so strong, it's not a person. Sengoku looked at this back in front of him, his eyes full of incredulity. Even against locks, he wasn't defeated so quickly. I didn't even catch the other party's blow, which was really embarrassing. But that's not all. Absolutely, never allow the Arthur pirates to merge with the Rocks pirates. For this purpose, even at the cost of life. Sengoku's panting voice gradually returned to calm, and a momentum gradually recovered from his body. Overlord color domineering. This kind of domineering that represents the qualification of the king is only possessed by one person in a million people. Since you haven't given up yet. Overlord color. Seeing Sengoku's movements, Arthur muttered to himself, and a faint purple light appeared in his eyes, like a demon king from the abyss. Then let you experience real despair. If it's a territory, there will be later. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 46. Bang. Zifa's body flew upside down and slid on the ground for several meters before stopping. The eyes looked ahead, with a deep sense of frustration. Strong, it's too strong for him to reach. The surrounding navies saw Zifa's defeat and immediately swarmed up. Rita's gaze swept slightly, with a look of neither sadness nor joy, as if she did not see the rushing navy, and slowly moved forward. The navies were getting closer and closer to Rita, but the speed was getting slower. A layer of frost gradually condensed, and the speed of running was like slow motion. When Rita wears the blue night moon soul. The outcome of this battle was already predestined. Damn, why can't my body move? Many of the navies are still running, but their bodies are standing like sculptures. The cold ice that enveloped their bodies made them unable to move. But there were not only ordinary naval officers in the crowd, but also some colonels and rear admirals, among whom there was no shortage of capable ones. Looking at the rushing navy, the corners of Rita's mouth hooked up a beautiful arc. Crescent mode, start. Behind the moon soul, the veil-like structure will unfold and release crescent moon particles outward. As these shiny particles spread outward, the surrounding temperature drops rapidly. The cold is thick and the ice is spreading. Everything was brought to a standstill, and only the silver-white knight could stride through it, scythe raising his scythe to reap the lives of his enemies. You can't win. There is no way to win at all. Sci-fi muttered at all of this. The strength of the two sides is not at the same level at all, and the number no longer means anything to them. Struggling to get up from the ground, resting for such a while, the ice on his arms had dissipated. But the wound on the upper body that was cut is still a little cold. The cold invades the body, and the slightest movement is painful. The mere act of standing up took him a few seconds. With his fists clenched, he attached his armed collar to it again, and walked towards Rita step by step. Faster and faster, faster and faster, faster and faster. Yikes, ha! The body jumped up, with determination in his eyes, and his clenched right fist slammed down. Brush, brush, brush. However, before he could get close to Rita's surroundings, he was already repelled by several cold rays, and his body flew out upside down. Poof! Wherever the cold light passed, blood burst out. Lieutenant General Sci-fi. The navies flocked to catch Sci-fi falling from the sky, only to find that the wound had been frozen in ice. Sci-fi was bloodless and unconscious. Avenge Lieutenant General Sci-fi. One by one, the navy roared and rushed towards Rita, and many muskets were aimed at it in the distance, intending to use the crowd tactic. Humph. In the face of these weak enemies, Rita really can't keep up her energy. With a wave of his right hand, a Titan mech appeared next to him. Rita stands on the shoulder of the Titan. The armor on her body has been transformed into the hunter outfit Shadow Iron. Carbon-based hunters, you go and play with them. A hound emerges from around Rita and rushes towards the navy. Rita's gaze swept to the side. Under the rolling thunder, every attack of Mei Tsuru had to use all his strength to resist. For swordsmanship, Tsuru still has some experience. But Mei's swordsmanship is also not far behind, and more importantly, the thunder and lightning are very dangerous to the crane. The surrounding navies couldn't get close to the range of the two. As soon as you enter a certain distance, dense thunder falls from the sky. Seeing this figure in front of him, there was no fluctuation in his purple eyes, and the crane calmed down and deceived him again. A swift blow stabbed straight in, and Mei only used the long sword in her hand to lightly pick it up. The crane's body couldn't help but pounce forward. Bang! A side kick with the slender right leg. Crane suddenly felt a huge force coming from his abdomen, and his body flew backwards. Facing the current crane, for Mei, there is no challenge. Seeing that there were still hundreds of navies around, Mei's body soared into the air. Kurigara emerged from behind. Roar! Opening his mouth full of sharp teeth, he roared angrily, and waves of chi spread outward, shaking the navy back again and again. The wings flapped slightly, the wind howled, and the huge body soared into the sky. Boom! Thunder spread in the sky, accompanied by the figure of Kurigara rushing straight down. It's really not merciless at all. Seeing this, Rita smiled. Dozens of warships and nearly 1,000 navies did not form a little effective resistance in front of Rita and Mei. And far away from this battlefield, Sengoku knew that he couldn't defeat Arthur on his own, so he decided to take a desperate gamble. The Overlord color gradually appeared from the body, the armed color was attached to the body, and the power of the whole body was converging. Success or failure is here. Overlord color. Arthur smiled, and a powerful momentum burst out of him. Boom! The Overlord color soared into the sky like a volcanic eruption. The ground beneath his feet couldn't withstand such an impact, and huge cracks spread outward. Overlord color domineering. How strong is it? It's just the Overlord color impact, and the warring states feel that they have to use all their strength to resist. What Karp said before was really not an exaggeration. This punches that you've come to disturb our camping for no reason, Arthur said, blasting away with a punch at Sengoku. Compared with the current huge size of the warring states, Arthur is indeed smaller, but in terms of strength alone, he is not inferior at all. Boom! With the power of thunder on the fist, a punch blasted out, and the thunder spread and enveloped the whole body of the warring states. The long sword in his right hand appeared, swinging diagonally upward. Brush. Layers of cold ice spread, freezing all the bodies of Sengoku in it. This battle can be said to be an easy victory, Arthur and his party. And yet at this moment. Whoosh! The sound of breaking through the sky roared, and the sky was full of cannonballs shooting straight from the sea. Captain, just leave it to Mei. Mei's voice came from mid-air, and Kuligara shook his wings and rushed out. Facing the cannonballs in the sky, rush straight into it. Boom, boom. Explosions rang out in unison. In the midst of the smoke of gunpowder, Kuligara broke through the air and looked at the hundreds of warships densely packed below. Kurigara's figure circled overhead, mouth open, and a breath gushed out. Armed color defense. On the deck of each warship, everyone raised their hands, and the invisible color of the armament formed a solid protective shield. Bang! As the flames spread, Karp looked at the scene on the island, and the expression on his face was full of solemnity. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 47. A few days ago, watching Sengoku leave, Karp couldn't let go of it. For the Arthur pirates, although Karp only has one side, but to be able to have such a powerful overlord color, what kind of strength will his own strength reach? It's a creepy thing just to think about. For a day, Karp had been following behind the Rocks pirates, and after thinking about this day, Karp made up his mind. The whole ship immediately bypassed the Locks pirates and chased after Sengoku. This move made the Locks pirates, who had been in front, a little confused. At first, I thought that the Navy was going to surround them, and they were ready for battle, but I found that the Navy was walking straight forward, completely ignoring them. And the way forward is exactly where they are going. So a more interesting picture appeared on the sea. The Navy drove in front, and the Rocks pirates followed behind, completely opposite to before. This decision also led to Karp and his party, which would have taken a few days to arrive, only half a day later than Sengoku. Sengoku, you must not have any trouble. Karp prayed all the way, and finally arrived at his destination in a hurry. The aftermath of the battle can be felt from the island. The powerful overlord color turns the dark clouds in the sky into whirlpools. Karp's gaze fell on Sengoku at a glance. You can clearly see the sword marks on your body and other injuries on your body, which have reached the state of the end of the crossbow. After seeing Sengoku gradually surrounded by ice, Karp finally couldn't wait any longer. There was still some distance from the island, and the order was immediately given to the whole ship to open fire. However, the cannonball was blocked by a dragon-like creature. Devil fruit ability, and it's an ancient species. This is a very rare devil fruit ability, and it is very powerful. Karp's heart sank, every time he thought he could explore the whole cards of the Arthur pirates, but in fact, what he saw was only the surface. A scorching flame descended from the sky, and in the face of Kuligara's breath, Karp immediately ordered. All the ships, defend. All the hands on the warship are raised and stand on the deck. Overlord color is like invisible armor, which can not only attack, but also increase defense. Domineering is released, and only those who are skilled in the use of domineering can display it. There are many people in the Navy, and there are naturally not a few such people. Invisible barriers were connected to each other, blocking the warship. Boom! The breath slammed into the barrier, and flames flew everywhere. It can be against the Rocks pirates, and every navy is the elite of the elite, at least they can resist a certain amount of overlord impact. It is conceivable how strong the overall quality of this navy is, and it is not at the same level as those that Rita and Mei packed up before. Seeing that Koligura's breath was blocked, a light flashed in Rita's eyes. These navies still have some strength. Here he jumped from the Titan mech and walked briskly to Arthur's side. Captain, there are reinforcements from the Navy, and they still have some strength. It's not just the Navy, I didn't expect the Locks pirates to come too. What's going on? Arthur frowned slightly. These two teams of people didn't attack each other, why did they come to him? On the sea, on the other side of the naval fleet, the Rocks pirates appeared. Hey, that's right, the Arthur pirates are so strong. Looking at the chaos on the island from afar, one of the Rocks pirates couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Especially the scene where Kuligara attacked the warship before. From such a distance, they could all feel the power of that attack. Only when so many warships come together can they resist. Is that the Sengoku of the Buddha? Edward the Whitebeard looked at Sengoku, who was still frozen, his pupils constricted slightly. I've also fought against Sengoku a few times, and I'm very clear about his strength. Not under any of them on the pirate ship except Locks. Such an existence was defeated, so how strong was the person who defeated him? Is it as powerful as Locks? Edward thought as his gaze fixed on Arthur next to Sengoku. There were no obvious scars, and his face was normal, and his calm appearance led Edward to a terrible conclusion. Defeated Sengoku, Arthur did not use all his strength, and even said that it was easy. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but gasp in my heart. Eyes on Locks again. Which of these two people is stronger? Shiki's eyes flickered, and when he saw the combat power of the Arthur pirates again, his thoughts were even more certain. Mei, come back. Mei sat on Koligura's back, looking down with a slight squint. Her attack was blocked, and she was about to launch a second attack when Arthur's voice stopped her movements. Kurigara circled back to the island, and vanished just as it was about to land. Captain. Mei stood on Arthur's other side, also looking ahead. The Navy Army, the Rocks pirates, the Arthur pirates. At this time, the three parties stayed in place, without any movement, forming a three-legged momentum. Total ship collapse, reject Rocks at the start. Author, return Captain. Chapter 48. Was originally an ordinary island, but at the moment it was full of solemn atmosphere. From above, you can see that most of the island, which was originally covered in vegetation, has been destroyed. The eyes are full of desolation, which can show how fierce the battle was here before. And around the island, there are dense warships next to each other. Each warship was full of people, all with grim faces, and at first glance they knew that they were not ordinary characters. On the other side of the warship, a huge sailing ship was quietly parked. Rocks pirates. A group of pirates gathered by the strong, and everyone on the ship is a strong man with one enemy against 100. Now both sides are watching the island. Without anyone's order, the navy on the island, which was still moving, spontaneously rescued the wounded navy. While moving, I couldn't help but look at the three standing figures. As a navy, they have encountered pirates who say no more, and no less, but this is the first time they have encountered pirates who make them feel hopeless. The two men crushed the hundreds of navies that had joined forces of their several naval branches, and their leaders were cleanly defeated. This made many naval forces doubt his own profession. This time, will the righteous navy be able to defeat the pirates who represent evil? Arthur, this is the second time we've met. Karp checked Zifa and Crane's condition, and found that Zifa was seriously injured and had fallen into a coma, while Crane was relatively better. After the wounded Navy was picked up by the accompanying medical team, saying that his life was not in danger for the time being, Karp breathed a sigh of relief and set foot on the island. Stand face to face in front of Arthur and look at the man. It was the first time that Karp had been so close to Arthur. His expression was indifferent, and his body was well proportioned, much worse than those tall and bulging muscular men. Is such a man, so that Karp really can't overlap with the man who broke out with the shocking overlord color before. So many of you came here with great fanfare, because you received some order to destroy my three-person Arthur pirates. This is the most unclear place for Arthur at the moment. According to what he thought, with the threat of the Lock's pirates, he shouldn't be approached by the Navy so quickly. This is clearly confirmed by the robbery of heavenly gold and the kidnapping of the celestial dragons. The Navy headquarters would rather spend money to settle the situation than carry out a crusade with great fanfare. And he doesn't seem to have done anything angry recently. Why did Sengoku come here and want to kill him? In the end, the Navy and the Rocks pirates all came over. It seems to have turned into a fragrant dumpling in the blink of an eye. Before I talk about this, can you let the Sengoku go first? Karp glanced worriedly at Sengoku, who was still frozen in the ice. He could feel the chill emitted by the ice cubes from such a distance, and he could imagine its true temperature. If it is delayed for a while, I am afraid that Sengoku will freeze to death inside. Karp, you're not kidding me, are you? Hearing Karp's words, Arthur laughed. A navy is a pirate for a pirate. Let him release a navy, and it is a navy that has attacked pirates. Do you think this kind of thing is possible? Listening to Arthur's words, the expression on Karp's face was a little ugly. Now to answer my question, why are your navy attacking me? It's actually because of the Rocks pirates. So far, in order to save the warring states first, he can only follow Arthur's words first. So the Rocks pirates wanted to find Arthur, and the Navy was afraid that the two of them would become more difficult to deal with if they joined forces, and the matter was said in one breath. I see. Arthur couldn't help but shake his head. It's no wonder that the Navy and the Rocks pirates are all here. Could it be that Arthur had no position to do so? He had already refused before, and he would agree to invite him again? That. Karp cautiously pointed at Sengoku. It's not impossible to let him go, but since you dare to make a move on me, you naturally need to pay a little price. Hearing the first half of the sentence, Karp's face showed a hint of joy, and the second half of the sentence made his heart sink. Don't worry, it won't kill him, it's just an arm brush. After Arthur finished speaking, the long sword in his hand swung downward. A bright light flashed on the frozen ice next to him, and Sengoku's left arm slowly slid down, the incision as smooth as a mirror. You. Seeing this scene, Karp's eyes widened. If you want to avenge him, I'm happy to accompany you. Do you think the Rocks pirates will sit idly by once they attack me? Or do you want to take a gamble? Bet on your navy if you can wipe out the Rocks pirates and my Arthur pirates here. Arthur's words poured like a basin of cold water over his head, and Karp's clenched fist slowly loosened. When he landed on this small island, he did not have a navy by his side, just for fear of causing unnecessary misunderstandings. As Arthur said, once war breaks out, a one-on-two situation is bound to be formed. Moreover, as an important combat force, Sengoku is seriously injured at the moment, and it is the top priority to bring him back first. Thinking about the gains and losses, Kabu didn't say anything more, walked up to Sengoku, and held his frozen body in his arms. One at Arthur, he picked up the arm that had fallen to the ground. Step by step, he returned to the warship. Watching Karp's departing back, Arthur stood still and didn't move. Putting Sengoku back also has his own considerations. The Rocks pirates are now in full swing, entangled with the navy and evenly divided. If the navy loses the great power of the warring states, the balance will be broken, which is not what Arthur wants to see. Now the Rocks pirates don't interfere with his well water, but as time goes by, if the Rocks pirates are dominant, they will inevitably have some other ideas. The truth that one mountain cannot tolerate two tigers is not outdated anywhere. In that case, it's better to let the navy and the Rocks pirates deal with each other, and he will sit next to him to reap the benefits of the fishermen. After all, it's still too much trouble to fight or something. On the sea, the huge warships changed their course one by one, and disappeared in front of everyone in more than 10 minutes. All that is left around this small island is the Rocks pirates. The author's Kun hasn't hung up yet, and his body is great, 7 times a night. At present, the people of the pirate world will not be contaminated with the power of Honkai, because such a setting has not been considered before. If you want to add it, you need to think about it, find the right time, and consider how to join. It's not as simple as joining the mix. Suddenly, with the power of Honkai, what will be the character of Sengoku? What will be the strength? They all say that they can't write to death, but in fact, they really can't write them to death. There are only a few important characters, and 2 or 3 chapters are written dead, and there is nothing to play later. Since some readers have proposed this setting, it will definitely be considered, so please wait a while. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 49. Ha ha ha. Lox laughed and stepped off the ship, with a kingly air to himself. The crew that followed him looked around and looked at the traces left by the battle. Rita and May took a small step forward at the same time to block Arthur. Looking at some of the Rocks pirates, there was vigilance in their eyes. The dozens of Lox pirates alone are comparable to hundreds of navies. The faint momentum emanating from each person is impossible to ignore. I didn't expect that. It has only been 2 or 3 months, and you have found a powerful member, which is really enviable. Locke's gaze fell on Mei Yi. He could see the previous scene clearly, and the only thing that the entire Rocks pirates could fight with was their hands. As for the final victory, we will only know until after the comparison. Lox, I'm really bothering you to come all the way here. I already know the matter, and my answer is still. As always. Looking at Lox in front of him, Arthur wanted to cut off his thoughts and go his separate ways, but he was stopped halfway through his speech. Lox raised his right hand and whispered, "Don't refuse so simply. On this sea, as long as the two of us join forces, even the world government can't help us, and at that time, won't we want anything? Locke's ambitions have never changed. Climb to the top and dominate the world. I'm sorry, but I don't have any interest in the boring ideal of world domination. At least not yet." Arthur added in his mind. Boring? Ha ha ha. Lox looked up and laughed as if he had heard something funny. After a while, the smile on his face quickly retracted, and his eyes looked straight at Arthur. Money, power, women, as long as you become the hegemon of the world, as much as you want. The whole world will run at your disposal. You say such a thing is boring. Don't you want that? Lox took a step forward with every word, and by the time he had finished speaking, he was already 3 meters away from Arthur. I don't know if it's deliberate, or because of the excitement in his tone, the momentum on his body is constantly churning. The world seemed to feel some kind of subtle change, the sky was cloudy, and there was a feeling that mountain rain was coming. Of course, I believe that everyone wants what you said. Arthur didn't hide his true thoughts either. I believe that as long as you are not a saint, the pursuit of fame and fortune will never stop. In that case, what is there to hesitate about? Together, we create a world that belongs to us. Hearing Arthur's answer, Knox was deeply pleased, and sure enough, The most touching thing is still money and power. Locks, you don't understand what I mean. Arthur shook his head and continued. I like rights, but I'll fight for it myself, not with you. Why? As long as we work together, we can get everything in the shortest possible time. Hearing Arthur's answer, Locke's tone was full of surprise. It was normal for the strong to join forces with the strong to get what they wanted, and Locke couldn't figure out why Arthur would refuse his invitation. This time Arthur was really asked. Did he tell Locke that he didn't believe in his character and was afraid that he would be stabbed in the back? It is estimated that as soon as the sentence is spoken, it will not be far from the battle. Arthur sighed and said lightly. I don't want to do it, I don't want to, there's no reason, Locke, that's it, I won't agree to your invitation. If we get entangled again, maybe we have to use force to solve it. Arthur's eyes were slightly condensed, his voice was calm, and he had prepared for the worst. Next to her, Rita and Mei are also ready. Locke didn't answer, his facial expression stood in place, but the momentum on his body was gradually churning. When everyone behind him saw this scene, they all stepped back. After being together for such a long time, they are very clear about Locke's character. A yelling Locke can be called a madman, while a Locke, who is as silent as a pool of stagnant water, can only be called a grim reaper. Arthur, I ask you again, join our Locke's pirates, and you will be under one man. Locke's voice seemed to come from within the nine shadows, which made people shudder. Arthur didn't answer, and took a step forward with Rita and May behind him. Has already shown his attitude with his action €a. Refuse. Good, good. A red light gradually appeared in Locke's eyes, and the momentum on his body gushed out like a flood that had opened the floodgates. Boom. The domineering color of the Overlord was released, and in an instant, the wind and clouds changed color, and the wind howled. Everyone's hearts were like a big mountain, and they couldn't help but retreat a distance again. No matter how many times I watch it, it's still so shocking. The strongest at sea deservedly. The Overlord is domineering, and even if the strong gather the Locke's pirates, there are not many people. And in terms of its strength, it is not comparable to Locke's. Just when the Rock's pirates were talking, they suddenly felt an awe-inspiring aura gradually awaken. If the Overlord color of Locke's is the original chaos of heaven and earth, then this breath is the axe that splits the chaos. Looking at Arthur in front of him, Locke's pupils dilated slightly. The same Overlord color is domineering, and the strength is growing rapidly upward. Locke, it's not wise to fight me. If it wasn't a last resort, Arthur really didn't want to fight Locke to the death. It's a thankless task to do that. Hey, hey. A smile slowly appeared on the corner of Locke's mouth, and the momentum on his body did not decrease but increased, and there was the first collision with the domineering energy around Arthur. Boom. The space seemed to tremble at the moment of collision, and with the two of them as the center, the land that was already in disarray was once again like a storm. On the surface, this collision, Arthur temporarily lost the landlord. Come on, Captain, reward you with black S. It's really the Lord who fears that the world will not be chaotic, Rita whispered in Arthur's ear. For Arthur, they naturally have absolute confidence, because that is their captain. What's wrong, Arthur, do you only have such a little ability? Locke laughed, surrounded by this domineering, arrogant and uninhibited. Hopefully you can keep laughing, Rocks. Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly, for the sake of the black S. Boom. The Overlord color in Arthur's body instantly climbed to a new realm, and Locke was caught off guard, and was pushed back again and again. You. Holding his figure steady and looking at Arthur, who was in front of him with a domineering aura similar to the one he had unleashed, Locke let out a roar from his throat. Domineering can't be promoted out of thin air, so there's only one answer. Arthur hadn't used full force before. How much to? Look down on him in the battle against him, Lox, who still has spare strength. Lox was furious, and he was going to knock Arthur down. Thinking of this, the overlord color on his body was like a raging lion rushing towards his prey. Boom! The domineering collided with each other again. Bang bang bang. With the two of them as the center, the land is fragmented layer by layer, and as the domineering power expands outward, the scope of the fragmentation is also expanding outward. Looking down from the sky, it can be seen that the two domineering groups, one on the left and one on the right, gradually occupy the entire island. You come and go, and you don't let each other go. Within the confines of this violent domineering, fragile trees were shattered, and even hard rocks were gradually decomposing. No way, his domineering is stronger than mine because of something. As Lox gradually exerted his full strength, his surprise was even greater. The domineering on the opposite side seemed to have no end in sight, and gradually put pressure on him, which actually made him feel that he couldn't resist. I'm the strongest. With a roar from Lox, the overlord color had already burst out at its peak at this moment. And yet, a domineering aura that was so powerful that it was impossible to resist suddenly attacked him, enveloping the entire island in an instant. At the same time, it also drowned out the horror on everyone's faces of the Rocks pirates. A third Valkyrie is under consideration. Kiana, Brynja, and Seal. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 50. What kind of power is this? The overlord color can be so strong. Just looking at it makes my whole body tremble with excitement. I can't do it anymore. Everyone in the Rocks pirates looked around. It was originally a small island, but now it was shattered in the collision of overlord colors, and only a foothold on the soles of his feet remained. Again, this is because Lox withstood most of the onslaught. The whole round island turned into a shape. Lox and Arthur looked across the sea, and the two didn't see any change on the surface. After this collision, Arthur understood what level Lox overlord color had reached. The high-grade overlord color is stronger than the average high-level overlord color, otherwise it is impossible to resist Arthur's impact. In this sea, there are probably very few overlords who can reach such a point. But alas, I met Arthur, a real top overlord color. Lox looked at Arthur with a stunned look in his eyes. Lox has absolute confidence in his own strength, and it is precisely because of this confidence that he has the ambition to dominate the world. Since the formation of the Lox pirates, even the Navy headquarters has been unable to help him, so they can only follow him and look for opportunities. However, at this moment, in a one-on-one situation, the domineering competition has fallen into disadvantage. This caused Lox to suffer a very serious psychological blow. Lox, you can stop it now. If you really fight to the death, I'm afraid it's just a lose-lose situation. Arthur spread his hands, but his expression did not relax in the slightest. In the domineering competition just now, he was just one line stronger than Lox. And there are many members behind Lox, each of whom is a first-class master. There is no doubt about the strength of Mei and Rita. 1 against 2 or 3 should not be a problem, but the other party is outnumbered, and there will always be unexpected situations when it comes to a real fight. Arthur also didn't want Rita and Mei to get hurt in such a senseless fight. He, ha ha ha. The low laughter grew louder and louder, and Lox looked up to the sky and laughed, drawing the short knife at his waist, and the armed collar was attached to it. This made Arthur's eyes narrow, ready for battle. However, after drawing the short knife, Lox did not attack, but turned to face the sea, raised the short knife and swung straight down. Brush. The calm sea is like two huge doors slowly splitting in the middle, extending as far as the eye can see, and it has not closed for a long time. Let's go. Lox turned to leave, and the rest of the crew glanced at Arthur following him. Watching the Rocks pirates leave, Arthur looked at the sea in front of him. Looking at the gap that gradually closes with the passage of time, the gaze is deep. How's that? Will you be able to block this blow? Arthur looked at Rita and May next to him and asked softly. Very strong. Rita's face showed a rare solemn look. It's not impossible to fight it with all your might. Mei Yi has returned to her original appearance, looking at the sword mark in front of her, her eyes flashed. After all, she also used a sword. This is the pinnacle of power in the sea. And the rest of the Rock's pirates are far from their prime. When they grow up, each of them is as strong as you. In fact, Arthur said this, and the moisture is still very large. Locks is indeed strong, that's for sure, but compared to Mei Yi, they are still a little worse. It's okay, after all, you're still the captain here, and I believe that you can defeat any enemy you encounter. Rita grinned and grabbed Arthur's arm, without the slightest hint of worry on her face. Oh, by the way, Rita, did you just say anything to me? Arthur turned his head to look at Rita with anticipation in his eyes. Did Rita say anything? Did you remember wrong, Captain? Rita tilted her head slightly, a confused look. If Arthur hadn't heard it clearly, he would have thought he had misremembered. Rita, the price of cheating the captain, you should remember it with your body. Arthur raised his hands in a gesture of waving teeth and claws. May help. Looking at the two chasing each other, Mei Yi smiled. But how could Rita let her stay out of the way, and ran straight towards Mei Yi. Don't come here. Bursts of laughter like silver bells rang out on the broken island, as if it were not in the same world as the ruined earth around it. After this battle, the whole sea fell into a rare calm. The battle between the Rock's pirates and the Navy was also temporarily suspended. And at the same time, in the medical class of the headquarters of the Navy. Is there really no way to get my arm back to its original state? Sengoku looked at the left arm that had been connected, and his eyes were blank. Although it took a bit of a long time to return to the Navy headquarters, because his arm had been frozen before, he was still connected after the doctor's full help. But at the same time, Sengoku heard very bad news. Although his arm has been connected, the strength he can exert has been greatly reduced. In other words, his strength is not as good as before, which makes Sengoku's heart sink to the bottom all of a sudden. After all, it was just picked up, and it should be okay as time goes on. Carp didn't expect things to turn out like this. Sengoku implements the absolute justice concept of the Navy, and now is the age to exert his fists, and the reduction of strength undoubtedly cuts off his progress. Don't comfort me anymore, Carp. Sengoku looked down, took a deep breath and said. What happened? Did the Lock's pirates unite with the Arthur pirates? To this day, the warring states are still thinking about this matter. Nope. He didn't shake his head, feeling very worthless for the warring states. In order to prevent a possible ruined life. Then he told Sengoku about the scene of their departure. It's good if you don't have it. Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. The disagreement between the two pirates is still very beneficial to our Navy. Sengoku stood up from the hospital bed, raised his hand and patted Carp on the shoulder, looking to the side. Zifa was still in a coma, and although the crane had woken up, he didn't know what to say. Because Tsuru knows that whatever he says is pale for Sengoku. How's Zifa doing? The doctor said that the wound on the surface had been treated, but there were several strange and cold breaths in the body, and with their ability, they could not eliminate it. Fortunately, the aura is gradually shrinking, and it should be awakened in a few days. Carp had been in the infirmary all this time, and he knew a little about everyone's situation. Sengoku nodded, turning to look at Carp. This is not where you should be, Carp. The Rock's pirates are still a big threat at the moment, but fortunately the Arthur pirates are not united with him, and the rest is up to you. Sengoku's eyes revealed a complicated look, and after speaking, he turned to leave. Warring states. Carp, Let Sengoku be alone for a while. Tsuru stopped Carp's attempt to catch up, and together they looked at the back of Sengoku as they departed, with regret in their eyes. Coming out of the medical class, Sengoku walked aimlessly inside the Navy headquarters. I watched the columns of navies pass by, and finally came to the training ground. Looking at the Navy training the field, the eyes of the warring states showed a look of memory. He was once one of them, training hard from being weak at the beginning, and gradually becoming stronger. Defeating countless pirates, the position is also rising step by step, and now it has reached the level of vice admiral, and it is not impossible to be promoted to admiral in a short period of time. But all this has now disappeared into the past, and his life will probably stop there. And in the short time of fighting Arthur, he has already seen the horror of his strength. He is also one of the best in the Navy, but he is suppressed in all directions. The strength of the domineering is beyond imagination, and I am afraid that even the Marshal of the Navy cannot compare to it. Alas! It doesn't have much to do with me anymore. An opponent of that level, with his current body, is not qualified to challenge at all. How can it be okay, Sengoku? A familiar voice came from behind him, making Sengoku quickly turn around. Marshal of the Air. I've heard about you. Yes, I'm afraid I won't be able to make a greater contribution to the Navy in the future. Sengoku said, his expression gradually declining. Rest assured, this won't happen. I'm here to tell you that I have a way to get you back to normal, but... At this point, Cyborg stopped. Marshal, as long as I can recover, I will not hesitate to pay any price. Was already desperate, but at this moment, there was a glimmer of light, and no matter what, the warring states must seize it. It's a life and death thing. I'm willing to gamble that my life would be worse than death. Seeing Sengoku's determined gaze, Steelbone nodded in the air. In that case, come with me, and I will tell your friends that you are cultivating. Sengoku took a deep breath and stepped forward. No matter what awaits him ahead.